So yeah, let's get into it. I'm going to get behind the camera and let's go. Okay, we can get straight into it. We've got, first thing we'll look at is the Clarity. This is an automatic filter fleece roller. Basically, it takes the water from the tank. So here's your downpipe. It goes through this into this chamber, and it comes out through this fleece liner. It's got a chamber inside with a float valve. I'll try and get some decent video of it, some decent footage that's not so you can actually see the float valve. But yeah, when this fleece mat gets clogged, it fills the chamber, the water level rises, it activates the float valve, and it brings out another little bit of this fleece roller. You'll probably see it going off shortly because it looks like it's quite high. But that's basically how it works. It's a fantastic piece of kit. There's a few different models on the market. You don't have to go for a Clarity. I think there's the X filter, and there's a couple more on the market. So you don't have to go with this specific brand. But to be honest, if someone was to say, what is one thing that you would recommend upgrading on the Red Sea Reefer 250, my first thing I would say is removing the filter socks and installing an automatic filter roller. I change the roll every 2.5 months. So with regards to maintenance, it is absolutely loving it, to be honest with you. If one thing I may note, to be honest, when I installed this, I had a massive drop in nutrients. So not only does it clear the water a lot better than filter socks, but it removes a lot. I mean, you've got to bear in mind with a filter sock, any waste is sitting in that filter sock and it's still in the water column. So it's still breaking down, producing ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate. With this sort of system, as soon as it gets clogged, it's bringing it out of the system. So that waste isn't being broken down into ammonia, nitrites, and nitrates. So your nutrients will take a hit if you're adding one of these to the system. But if you're having trouble with high nutrients in your reef tank and you are running filter socks, consider a filter roller, because to be honest, the maintenance on them is great. It's a lot less maintenance work to be done, and also you get the added benefit of removing the waste before it has time to break down. So yeah, that is the Clarity automatic filter roller. So below the Clarity, we've got 1 kilogram of max spec bio balls. On top of the max spec bio balls, there is a bag of carbon. I run carbon on this system 24/7. A lot of people recommend not to use carbon 24/7, but because I'm dosing lanthanum chloride to this system, which I am thinking about removing from the system soon, but we'll get to that in another video. I do keep carbon in there to try and remove that excess lanthanum from the system. Above to the left, we've got our probes for the Profilux 4. We're not going to get into that in much depth. Here we've got a flipper. This is where I keep my flipper because I don't like keeping the metal parts submerged in the water. So yeah, that just stays there. Over this side, we have got a tiny, what is this? This is a Seche Voyager Nano. It's basically a little wave maker. I keep that directly below my dosing lines to mix in the elements that I'm dosing to this system before they have time to solidify. So yeah, that's the only reason why that's in there. It's a tiny little pump. It's very quiet. The only thing I don't like about it is this wire that hangs down here. So yeah, my dosing lines are just above that. Speak for themselves. I dose 4 parts. 4-part Triton, and that gets dosed into here. The skimmer is a Nios Quantum 120. This is a brilliant skimmer. I apologise that I've not cleaned it out. But this is an absolutely brilliant skimmer. It is absolutely silent. This thing does not make a sound. Prior to this, I had the Red Sea, I think it was a Red Sea 600 skimmer, and that thing was hell loud. I mean, like so loud, I had to take it back to the shop, and I actually complained to Red Sea about how loud it was. And they said, oh, sorry, you must have had a faulty one. But to be honest, I saw when I bought it, there was a lot of information on forums saying how loud that skimmer was. I switched over to the Nios 120, and honestly, it was the best switch I've ever made. I was torn between a Reef Octopus skimmer and this skimmer. To be honest, both skimmers would have been absolutely brilliant, but I settled for this one, and I'm honestly really happy with how this skimmer's going. Quiet, efficient. What more can you want from a skimmer? The only downside is it is not a cheap skimmer. For a relatively small skimmer, it is bloody expensive. But yeah, I'm happy with the purchase, so I can't really complain. Attached to the skimmer is this line here that comes into the air in line. that is just attached to this CO2 scrubber. I use lime soda in the CO2 scrubber, and I replenish the media every 2 months, I think, 2.5 months in the summer, and probably every 1.5 months in the winter, because all the windows are closed. There's more CO2 in the room. Basically what this does is it absorbs the CO2 from the air that is going through the skimmer. So it's sucking air through this nozzle here. Let me move up. It's sucking air through this nozzle here, which goes into the skimmer. It passes through the lime soda, and it removes the carbon dioxide from the air that's going into the skimmer, thus increasing the pH of the tank. And to be honest, if you're struggling with pH in your tank and you are running the skimmer, consider getting a CO2 scrubber, because I started working from home about a year ago, and I was really struggling with low pH in the system because I was constantly in the room that this tank is in. And as soon as I added the this CO2 scrubber, my pH jumped by, I think it was about 0.4, which is pretty good. So I was struggling to hit 8, a daily high of 8, and now I'm hitting a daily high of 8.4, 8.5. So I'm really happy with this purchase. And as I say, it's actually, once you bought the body of the CO2 scrubber, the media is actually relatively cheap. I don't buy reef-specific CO2 media. I know I could buy that from, say, like H2O Aquatics, but you always have to pay a reefing tax when you buy stuff like that. So I go on a medical supply website and I buy soda lime for this off that website. And I bought so much. I bought about a year's supply in one, and it cost me about £40. So about £40 for the year to run this CO2 scrubber. Really can't complain. Behind that, there's actually nothing. There is nothing behind that skimmer. I had somebody ask me the other day if I run a fuge. Nothing behind the skimmer. It is just, that's it. Just down here to the right, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it, but that's where I run my heater. It's a titanium heater, and it's controlled by the Proflux. The Proflux probe is over here. But as I say, we're not going to get into the technical side. We are just looking at the sump system, because like I say, it is very basic, except for maybe the Clarity, which is a bit of a luxury. This is all the sort of same stuff that you have in your sump system. So into the last chamber, I'm running the Reef Octopus Varius 6, I think it is. It's 6,000 litres per hour. Absolutely brilliant return pump. It's not the cheapest you can get. You can definitely get cheaper. But to be honest, it's been running probably about a year now. Touch wood, it has never missed a beat. It is absolutely silent, so I really, really can't complain at that. Just behind that is the ATO, the auto top-off. That is an optical sensor, and just to the top right of that is where the top-off water feeds back into the sump in chamber 3. My auto top-off container isn't actually within this system. On a standard reefer 250, you'd usually have an auto top-off, a glass compartment that usually sits here, but because I added the Clarity, I was unable to keep that. So actually, if you look just down here, underneath this TV unit here is actually a 30-litre container that keeps my top-off water. Here is the line that moves across, and that comes in just over there. So, I think, if I'm not wrong, that is actually everything in the sump. That's literally it. Apart from this little cabinet over here, this is a little DIY cabinet. I've actually had a few questions about this, so I'll quickly talk about this. It is a piece of furniture board. Basically, it is it's basically a shelf. I cut it into 4 pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, screwed it in here, here, ooh, where's my finger, here and here, and sat it in the tank, sat it in the cabinet, and that is it. So yeah, I actually think that's all the equipment in the sump. We've got the Clarity, we've got some media, we've got some carbon, skimmer, a little wave maker for the dosing, heater, return pump, and ATO. There is nothing in this sump that you wouldn't have in a standard sump. So yeah, like I say, the filtration on this tank is very, very simple. It's only this sort of equipment that makes it look posh and fancy and makes it look really technical. But to be honest, other than this doser here, it is actually all just monitoring equipment. Nothing else is doing any hard work. So yeah, that's the sump system of my Red Sea Reefer 250.